Next on Currents News, an exclusive report from Dublin. Before the Pope arrives for the World Meeting of Families, a prominent Irish sex abuse survivor is speaking about the truth. I'll talk with a Brooklyn priest about the challenges he's facing as the abuse crisis unfolds. The keynote speaker at the World Meeting of Families offers hope for the future. Plus, pilgrims from the Brooklyn Diocese visit a revered spot in Knock. We are with them. The news starts right now. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. Pope Francis will be at the World Meeting of Families on Saturday. His arrival in Ireland comes at a troubled time for the Church, the clerical sex abuse crisis. Currents News' Michelle Powers reports from Dublin that the country's most prominent abuse survivor is not looking forward to the trip.
When Colm O'Gorman left home just after 18, he spent 6 months on the streets of Dublin wondering what he did wrong in life to be sexually abused by a Catholic priest for years.
I was at a youth event.
The smells, the sounds, the feelings. Colm O'Gorman remembers it all. He was 14 years old when he was raped by a parish priest for the first time. Now he's only left with words to describe the agony of long ago, but the horror has never left him.
He said to me, I need to talk to you. He said, I'm worried about you. You have a problem.
Father Sean Fortune continued to abuse Colm for years, until one day Colm decided this priest wasn't going to ruin his life anymore. He ran away from home to Dublin, broken and afraid, living on the streets, but free from hell.
I told him I had to get away. And he offered me money if I would find, he put it, if you find somebody like you but younger than you.
In 1999, Sean Fortune committed suicide before any charges were found against him. He was never even tried. The last papal visit to Ireland in 1979 was just 6 months before Colm was assaulted for the first time. Back then, he was still Catholic, a boy believing in the good of the Church and the good of God's priest. Today, he's Ireland's most prominent sex abuse survivor and no longer a believer in the Church. And he'd rather Pope Francis not be here.
All I see is action when public outrage forces action.
Just days before his visit to Ireland, Pope Francis released a letter of apology for clerical sex abuse, referring to the Pennsylvania grand jury for the first time. The Holy Father acknowledges a cover-up. Still, for O'Gorman, this is too little, too late.
It's disrespectful to ask us to simply believe that they've now had a road to Damascus moment where they recognize that their conduct wasn't acceptable, but they don't even need to name that. It's disrespectful to ask people to believe them.
Many have called the Pope's language in the letter historic, referring to abuses as crimes and not just sins.
Really, the bar is so low that in 2018, after everything that we've revealed, we believe it's a significant step forward when the Vatican, that purports to be the representatives of Christ on earth and the source of absolute truth, acknowledges that to rape a child is a crime and not just a sin. That's progress. So what's changed?
O'Gorman argues that the letter fails to name who was responsible for the cover-up. And when asked about the Church's recent gains in curbing abuse, he's not sure anything really ever changed.
Bad people do bad things. But when a system exists that protects the system and the people who do these things, then those bad things become terrible.
Pope Francis will meet with survivors during his time in Ireland, a meeting O'Gorman doesn't support, unless the Holy Father speaks very specific words, ones O'Gorman has been waiting for.
1998, I asked the Vatican to tell the truth. They used diplomatic immunity to avoid doing so. In 2018, I'm asking Pope Francis, tell the truth.
Mr. O'Gorman says that no apology from Pope Francis or the Church would ever be acceptable. He says only truth can have the power to change. In Dublin, Michelle Powers, Currents News.
Mr. O'Gorman's quest for truth is shared by many Catholics around the world. And in a few moments, I'll speak with Brooklyn priest Father John Gribowich. He's very passionate about the challenges that are confronting the church today. At the World Meeting of Families this morning, the keynote speaker was Archbishop Eamon Martin of Ireland, instead of Washington Cardinal Donald Wuerl, who's facing scrutiny for the handling of past sex abuse cases. The national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, Christopher White, asked Archbishop Martin if the family gathering could move beyond the abuse issue.
I don't think it can. I think it would be foolish for us to think that an event, even a wonderful, affirming event like this, can move us on, nor should it. We have to remember that people who have been abused are suffering a lifelong trauma. It doesn't go away. It may subside for a while and then it comes back. So therefore, I think the Church, if it's going to walk this journey with those who have been so cruelly betrayed by the Church is going to have to live through the pain of shame, through the pain of distrust. I think we have to realize that we cannot expect people to move on. We cannot expect people to trust us if they have been so cruelly betrayed by the heinous crimes and sins of the past in the Church. What we can do at an event like this is hope to give people hope.
And that's what Archbishop Martin did moments earlier before he spoke with Christopher when he delivered the keynote speech at the World Meeting of Families.
Into this complicated, topsy-turvy world, we have the joy and the challenge of communicating a clear and positive vision of family and marriage. The good news that human life is sacred. Each human being comes from God who created us, male and female. That we are all willed by God who loves each and every one of us. That self-giving love and commitment in the marriage of a man and a woman open to life is not only possible, but is a beautiful and fulfilling gift with the power of God's grace. That chastity is achievable, healthy and good for our young people. That giving yourself in marriage to another person for life is a special, rewarding and wonderful symbol of Christ's forgiving, faithful love for his church.
Archbishop Martin also affirmed that no one is excluded from the circle of God's love. Currents News and Crux are joining forces to provide in-depth coverage of the Family Summit, especially this weekend when we'll televise continuous live coverage of Pope Francis in Ireland starting Saturday morning at 5:30 on Net TV, lasting until the Holy Father's Day is done. We'll be back live on Sunday morning starting at 4:15. I'll be anchoring along with tablet editor Ed Wilkinson and Jorge Dominguez of Nuestra Voz. We're teaming up with Crux's John Allen, Christopher White, Inez San Martin, Claire Jean Gravé, and Elise Harris to bring you the very best in news analysis and expertise. John is leading the Crux team in Ireland, and he caught up with a prominent cardinal, CHRISTOPH Schomburn of Vienna, who said the Irish gathering is taking place at a crucial time.
The World Meeting of Families comes exactly at the right time here in Ireland, where so much has been done, and in other parts of the world, in other parts of the Church.
Before speaking with John, the Cardinal led an interfaith panel on family life, and John asked him about it.
You also mentioned Amoris Laetitia in your introduction, and of course this meeting is organized around Amoris Laetitia. You're well aware there has been some criticism of Amoris. I mean, even at this meeting, there is a group that is leading a rosary each day, hoping that the heresy of Amoris will be dispelled, and all of that. But do you think we are at a moment now where some of that criticism has run its course and we can focus on the rest of Amoris Laetitia?
That's what we had to do from the very beginning. It is such a beautiful document. It is complementary to Pope John Paul's teaching on marriage and family, and it's at the right moment for this time, a very practical, deeply rooted, spiritually rooted teaching on marriage and family. And I think the critiques, they always exist, They have to be looked at carefully, but not to be focused on.
Cardinal Schonborn told the crowd at the interfaith panel that traditional family life is a basic inclination of human nature. A large contingent of Catholics from the Brooklyn Diocese are in Ireland for the World Meeting of Families. Currents News' Tim Harfman traveled with them to the Shrine of Our Lady of Knock on the anniversary of a miraculous event. It's something that is celebrated in music.
As the song goes, there were people of all ages gathered round a gable wall, and pilgrims from the Brooklyn Diocese gathered with hundreds of other Catholics on the anniversary of the apparitions here at the Shrine of Our Lady of Knock, and just days before Pope Francis arrives in Ireland. It's believed that a miracle took place on these grounds. The Blessed Virgin Mary appeared in 1879. Catholics commemorate the anniversary with a procession and Mass.
I was truly impressed with the spirituality and the presence and respect. It was just a very moving experience.
Over a century ago, the Blessed Mother appeared with St. Joseph and St. John the Evangelist at this gable wall. 15 people gathered and prayed the rosary in the rain, but not a single drop hit the visions. Worshippers continue to gather today to venerate the gable wall and pray through the intercession of the Blessed Mother under the title of Our Lady of Knock.
She's a mother to the world, and people see her as their mother in different titles, and she's just very spiritual to us.
The Knock Shrine is one of many stops Pope Francis will make when he visits Ireland this weekend. The purpose of his journey is to attend the World Meeting of Families. It's the largest gathering of Catholic families and will focus on the theme of the common home. The pontiff is scheduled to spend an hour at the shrine Sunday morning, first to pray silently in the chapel, then lead worshipers in prayer. This will be the second time a pope visits the shrine. St. John Paul II celebrated Mass for over 400,000 worshipers in 1979. But regardless if a pope visits the site, the Knock Shrine remains a popular place for pilgrims devoted to the Blessed Mother.
We go to her to ask for guidance, just like we do with our moms. So she's the ultimate mother.
And although pilgrims from the Brooklyn Diocese won't see the Holy Father here, they'll be with him at the vigil in Crow Park on Saturday and at the closing Mass in Phoenix Park on Sunday. In Ireland, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
Tim and Michelle will be reporting from the Emerald Isle all this week. Stay with Currents News. Our special coverage of the family meeting from Ireland resumes tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. And this weekend, we will have continuous live coverage of the Pope. Also, follow us on social media at the Currents News Facebook page and on Twitter at CurrentsNY. There's a lot more news headed your way. A no-holds-barred talk with Brooklyn's Father John Gribowich. I'll ask him about being a churchman these days. And the latest on a priest attacked from behind. The assailant said he was seeking revenge. Do you have a story idea? Something happening in your parish we should know about? Because we want to hear from you. Keep this email handy, newstips@desalesmedia.org. We'll be right back. The clergy sex abuse crisis is a presence at the World Meeting of Families. Archbishop Martin made that plain a few moments ago. Brooklyn's Father John Gribowich is very passionate about the church and his vocation, and he joins us now. Father John, thank you so much for being with us again.
Liz.
As you know, there is so much going on with these abuse scandals. News seems to be breaking nearly every single day. We have the grand jury report, we have the McCarrick case, we have the Pope's letter, and we have this upcoming meeting with survivors in Ireland. You wear a collar. What is going through your mind personally?
Well, I think you could speak to my family and my friends, and they would know exactly what's going through my mind. This week has been very difficult, and I have to just say I'm absolutely livid. That's all I can really say right now, because this really hurts deep on many different levels.
You are livid. You are angry at who? At what?
Well, you know, it's so easy to think that, okay, I'm just frustrated with the institutional church, with everything that the church has been doing from the top down, right? And then I have to step back for a second and realize that, you know, I'm actually a part of the institutional church. I'm a priest. I make up part of the hierarchy, right? And that's a very humbling thing to accept, because in a certain way, I'm almost guilty by association. And that's something I need to accept, because as a priest, priests share in the one priesthood of Jesus Christ. And as much as I may be happy with the successes of another priest because they're my successes, the failures of another priest, in a certain sense, are really my failures as well. That's how I'm looked upon. I'm in with everyone at this point.
You're talking about the failures now, so let's now talk about another word that's being used, accountability. It's being used a lot. We're all in agreement something needs to be done, but how do we make accountability an action word? What needs to be done? That's the big question.
Right, and I think that what this grand jury in Pennsylvania revealed is that as much progress has been done since the Dallas Charter in 2002, the one thing that has not been done is accountability on the part of bishops and their advisors who played a role in the cover-up. Nothing has been done there. And I think that's really the role of the laity, to tell you the truth, because I don't think there would be an internal mechanism within the church that's going to be able to provide accurate accountability to bishops and their advisors at this point. So what I suggest actually is that, there's a time right now where a lot of lay Catholics are talking to their priests who they know to be good men and encouraging them and saying that, you're one of the good priests and we need you. I don't think that's really what priests need to hear right now. They don't need to hear about how good they are. And I mean that not because I want to say that we're all guilty in a certain sense, but because we need to be prophetic voices right now. Priests need to be prophets.
I want to get to this, Father John, because a priest friend of yours, Father Chris Walsh, who's in Pennsylvania, he's also speaking out from the pulpit, so I want to listen to what he has to say, and then we'll address that
Sure,
after that.
Definitely.
As I read the report and I sat this week, I wasn't sure that I wanted to remain a part of this church. I thought, why bother? And then I prayed. And then I came to Jesus, who is the bread of life, who always renews us. And I thought, I'm not going to let them win.
Why bother? I'm not going to let them win. You sit with your brother priest, Father John. Is this the conversation that's going on?
Right. I just came back from talking with Chris, and this is the conversation that is going on. And I think that we are all looking for prophetic voices right now to re-examine everything that we do as an institutional church, from how we spend our money, from what our priorities are. Everything needs to be examined, and also how we train our priests, and also how priests themselves can be more accountable to the laity.
Priests can be accountable. We can be accountable. You're part of the DeSales Media Group. You watch all the time. Rate the media's handling of the scandals. Be honest.
Well, it's easy to kind of say that, well, once again, the church is being focused on for something that's a wider problem, and that is true. But I think as a church, we need to be the standard bearer for how to do things right. So if we are the ones that are being focused on how we're doing things wrong, it should only encourage us to get to the root of what is wrong and to do things better and be more faithful to Jesus Christ, because that's where the crisis is. We've not been faithful.
You say we need change. You say we need radical change.
Yes.
What is that change, and what do you say to lay people about it?
Well, what I would say to them is you have to think about why you're Catholic, and it comes down to the Eucharist. The Eucharist either means everything to you or nothing. And so the one way that we receive the Eucharist is through the hands of the priest. So we have to be faithful to Jesus in the Eucharist. And that's the way we're going to be able to make sense of what has to be done on an institutional level. So this is not the time to give up, but it's a time to rally more closely around Jesus, especially in the Eucharist.
All right, Father John, I appreciate your candor very much. Thank you so much for joining me. We have a lot more to talk about. I'm sure you'll be back.
Okay.
Tonight, the FBI is investigating after a priest ended up in the hospital. Reverend Basil Hutzko from St. Michael's Byzantine Church in Indiana was attacked from behind after a church service. Father Hutzko said the assailant approached him from behind and beat him violently. The priest's pastor described the crime.
The attacker grabbed him, choked him, and threw him to the ground and knocked him unconscious. He was wearing gloves. Father Basil does not know who it was. But while he was attacking him, he heard the attacker say to him, "This is for all the kids."
Father Hutzko has never been accused of abuse. The FBI is investigating the assault as a hate crime. In Pennsylvania, new sex abuse charges against another priest. Reverend Kevin Lonergan is accused of sexual misconduct towards a minor after he touched a 17-year-old female parishioner inappropriately and sent her lewd pictures of him. The district attorney led a 2-month investigation.
Lonergan met the victim before a Mass at St. Francis of Assisi Church in Allentown. Shortly after that initial meeting, he obtained her cell phone number from a member of the church.
The district attorney said Bishop Alfred Schlert of Allenton alerted the authorities about the cleric, and the 30-year-old priest is not named among the priests listed in the Pennsylvania grand jury report. Also in Pennsylvania, Joseph Bambera, the leader of the Diocese of Scranton, is speaking out about the recent abuse allegations in the state.
I would dare say in the 150 years of our diocese, this is the darkest moment. As we look back on events that have occurred in our recent history that really should never have been.
Bishop Bambera said Sunday's mass attendance throughout the diocese was normal. Still to come on Currents News, the tearful farewells that may be forever as families separate once again. And a man blesses drivers who take his card. It could save his life. We'll be right back. The 88 families that were reunited with their loved ones in North Korea earlier this week have now said their final goodbyes. The three-day reunion, in which the families tried to make up for almost 7 decades apart, is over. The South Korean relatives are returning home, while thousands of others await the opportunity to see their loved ones before age gets the best of them. And people with signs at the sides of the road normally ask for change, or they ask for food. Well, one Georgia teacher is asking for a different kind of assistance, and it really could save his life. Adam Harding has that story.
See if we see anybody down here.
On the side of this Atlanta highway,
It is hot today.
life can seem busy.
I got sunblock on.
Cars passing by faster than time.
Thank you, sir. God bless you.
And all Sam Worley wants to do
Hi there.
is hit the brakes. For weeks, he's been walking up to drivers.
I'm not taking money, but if you can take a card, I'd appreciate it.
He doesn't want a handout.
Thank you. God bless you. I'm not taking money, but I have a card for the Piedmont donation number.
He wants a chance to live.
Yeah, if you can share me online, I'd appreciate it. I'm just trying to get a kidney. I was sitting at this light at this intersection one day on the way home from work, and I thought, well, it's something. Try something.
Sam says he's been on a wait list for 6 years.
In 5 more years, I could be too sick to get a kidney. The wait times keep increasing. And like right now, they're saying 10 years, but when the 10 years is up, they might be telling me 15 or 20. And I know I don't have that long.
He's not willing to just sit around any longer.
I figure desperate times, desperate measures.
So a few times a week,
Can I give you a card?
you'll find him here,
If you could share me online, I'd appreciate it. It's got the donor number for Piedmont and my name on it.
sharing his story
Thank you very much.
in hopes of finding that perfect match.
I think it's extraordinarily creative.
I actually had one lady one day ask me, is this for real? And it's like, yes, ma'am. And I think they're just shocked. I don't think people realize how long that people like me are on this list waiting. And there's people dying while they're waiting. And I don't want to be that person.
Oh, he's an inspiring man, and you never know who can get that card. And Mr. Worley isn't fighting alone. His students at the Art Institute of Atlanta often join him on the side of the road in his search for a kidney, so he has lots of supporters. That is Currents News. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Liz Faublas. Set your DVR to record this program so that you never miss it, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.